Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo Choo. My name is Gabe Estel to be here, and I'm here with my wonderful co-hosts, my good friends, Dennis Levi Leach and Jonathan Getz. How you doing, fellas?
Doing good.
Hola. Hola.
Happy Sunday. Happy September. Baseball. Not a lot of baseball left to play. And not a lot of baseball news for any of our teams other than the one in Kansas City. So, good luck, man. That's all I can say, really, you know?
They've scored
Yeah.
20 runs in their last 9 games, and they've won 5 of those games. Go figure.
Something's clicking then. So, yeah.
There's some magic as they beat Jeter on Jeter Day at Yankee
Right,
Stadium at
right,
at the score of, get this, 2-0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little homage to Jeets.
Yeah.
Good deal, man. Because I'm sick of really kind of, I don't know. I'm sick of another year of kissing a Yankees ass. You know what I mean? Like with Rivera last year
Right.
and Jeter this year.
Right. Yeah, it's getting old.
We might have touched on this earlier, but it just seems like when the three of us were growing up, if somebody retired, I don't remember it being that big of a deal, even if it was an iconic player. You know, maybe like his last home game, they would, have a ceremony, I would assume.
Yeah.
Right.
Something like that. Like when somebody, I'm trying to think of the iconic players that retired during our times, like people like George Brett, Robin Yount, people like that.
I would say it kind of started with maybe Cal Ripken.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so.
Like he was one of the
Player
first
idol.
guys they did the tour, like every stadium he went to that last year.
Yeah.
They were just like, oh, Cal Ripken.
Well, and it's been a bit different over the last dozen years because a lot of these players, Clemens, Pettit, they're guys that are kind of disgraced in a way, and at the same time, people are like, "Oh, he'll probably come back," and they did a couple times,
Right.
where it was like, it was like the Final Kiss tour. It's not really the Final Kiss tour. So yeah, it's a little bit different now. You don't know how to react to it unless and it's admittedly a little bit refreshing when it is final with a guy like Rivera or Jeter.
And let's be honest, guys,
yeah.
they're less sympathetic because they're the fucking Yankees anyway. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so good stuff. But anyway, to close that portion of the conversation, best of luck in KC, man.
Thanks.
It's not going to be us, so it might as well be you. So good luck, man.
Thanks.
I mean that.
Hey, one of the three of us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck, man. You guys are due. That's for damn sure. Yeah, 30-year playoff drought. Anyway.
Yeah, longest in
right.
pro team
Well,
sports.
tonight we are going to. The theme is sort of, I guess, the word of the night is video. But we're going to talk about baseball video games, which all three of us really grew up in a golden era for baseball video games on different home entertainment systems. I think particularly the Nintendo, the NES. Most of my choices come from that system, late 80s. And then also we're going to talk about music videos. Some music videos that really stuck with us over the years, ones that that influenced us, maybe influenced our taste, turned us on to different bands, maybe sort of capture a moment in time for where we were. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this. We're going to start with baseball games. And I'm gonna talk about our favorite games, and then maybe some different ideas that we might have for baseball games as well. Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and start us off tonight? We'll go Jonathan, Levi, and then I'll close it out, and then we'll kind of open it up for just a conversation about baseball games after we get our favorite choices out of the way. So
Sure.
So what about you, man? What digging through the treasure trove, what did you find?
When I think of in particular, it is 8-bit baseball games, because when I segued into the Sega Genesis, I focused a bit more on hockey, and as you very well know. And so, but with Nintendo, it was baseball, and the original Nintendo baseball release was is something that I think about a lot, dude. I would play that game with my Little League team. I can't remember if it was the Flames or the Explorers, and I I would keep track of all of the stats as they pertain to my actual Little League teammates and the lineup. Like, I was that hardcore with it. And
nice.
And so, yeah, I mean, playing that game, totally rudimentary. But though you could kind of finesse that ball over the plate, like you could kind of curve it over the plate just to kind of catch the outside corner. It was unhittable.
You could get some movement, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But then at the same time, it was totally frustrating when a ball was hitting the gap and it would just take forever for your left fielder to make it over there. The guy's rounding second, yeah. But man, when you got a hold of one in baseball, it felt good. It's funny how you can still feel it. You know, when you got a hold of one and you knew it was gone, and they all had the sound effects of like the kind of like pseudo missile sound effects. The bing! You could hear the arc of the ball based on the sound, and like you can still feel that. It's very ingrained and almost spiritual. And so as a result, I mean, just Nintendo baseball holds a place there, even though it was, I assume it was the first baseball game for Nintendo. In addition to that, there are the usual suspects, but I'm partial to Baseball Stars, actually. Baseball Stars was really smooth. And that was kind of important with a lot of those 8-bit games where even though it was a newer game, didn't necessarily mean that it felt better. But Baseball Stars got it right, when whether it was
groundbreaking.
Oh
at
yeah,
the time.
yeah, and I don't know the technical aspects of it, but it felt fun to play, and it had a good tempo to it. I mean, I don't think it had MLBPA or MLB endorsements, so it was all generic
I don't believe
cities and players. So
there was a team called the Lovely Ladies. It was all girls.
Yes.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, they wore pink. Yeah.
They were like in League of Their Own uniforms.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's and it's amazing to think that was a time when because nowadays that would really matter. You would never consider buying a baseball game that didn't have the professional players or teams.
Right.
It would just be out of the question.
Yeah.
And so, but Baseball Stars 2 was I was pretty partial to. I also had Roger Clemens Baseball because I was a huge Roger Clemens fan. It wasn't as good, actually. In a lot of ways, it was a step back. It had some unique aspects to it, like when a ball was hit, it would be all of a sudden like a center field camera, which was unique. And then also when there was when you were stealing a base and the catcher would throw down, you had the choice as you were sliding in to put your hand on the right side of the bag or the left side of the bag, or stay in the middle of the bag to avoid the tag. And that was pretty cool. Like, they did a couple unique things there. And then all of the players, I think, had faux names. Like, you could tell who they were, but they were. It was like
on Clemens game,
they would use nicknames, I think, instead of the actual player names. It was like Blueberry instead of Strawberry, things like that.
Right.
But and so I wanted to really like the Clemens baseball, but it wasn't as good as the others. But it did have some unique aspects to it. But overall, I mean, I think Baseball Stars was kind of the funnest to play, just in gameplay and tempo.
Yeah,
it was a good
Very
game.
fluid.
I believe it was SNK, I think, made that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they made a lot of good games on the original Nintendo.
Yeah.
No. I might be getting confused with Capcom. Did SNK do Final Fight? Jumping off baseball games for a second.
Right.
I think SNK was Fatal Fury.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Which was along the same lines. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fatal Fury, buddy.
Yeah. Baseball Stars. Yeah. I remember the American Dreams. They were like the best team.
Yeah.
They had pretty much all power hitters, and just pitchers were just entirely dominant.
The Jonathan mentioned, one guy was named Pete, and that was supposed to be Pete Rose.
Right.
The one guy was named Babe.
Yeah.
And obviously we know who that was.
Yeah. Absolutely. That game too, I mean, had Jonathan mentioned the gameplay was really fluid for its time, but also the roster options. You didn't have that before. Like, you could play a full season.
Right.
It would keep track of your stats.
Right.
I mean, granted, the Nintendo didn't have any memory, so you had to play that full season like in one sitting. Which Whitehurst and I did on several occasions, like just all night game-a-thons. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
keep your Nintendo on for like days.
Oh yeah, the thing would be like smoking.
Pause
you know,
and
Nintendo would be
come back
so
to it.
hot, like when we turned it off at 4:30 in the morning. I would just like you touch it and be like, yeah. Whitehurst and Damon Davis and I would just all night played, so it had those options, but also I don't know if you guys remember, you could change people's names as well. You could sort of customize your team a little bit too. So you could put in your own name, which was awesome at the time.
Right. Absolutely.
That is early for that.
There weren't any other games where you could do that. I remember the first time I saw it, it was almost kind of unfathomable. I was like, wow, I didn't know. It's funny to say it now, obviously, but like I didn't know a video game could do all of that.
Oh, right.
Because we were used to,
right.
Games, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later, but like some games where, the features were certainly more limited. So.
Oh, yeah.
It was groundbreaking. I've used that word before tonight, but it was groundbreaking.
Absolutely.
Great game. Great game.
Yes. Good choice, man. Yeah. I remember the team my favorite team wasn't the American Dreams though. There were the team that was kind of like, their motif was kind of ninja-like. They were all in black. And they had a lot of guys that were fast. They were generally accepted as the second best team.
Yeah.
They were like they had a lot of speed, and you could win the whole thing with them. It'd be more challenging than with the American Dreams, but you could win the whole thing with them too.
Yeah.
The other teams kind of it dropped off significantly after that. So yeah. All right, good choice. Levi, what about you, man? What I know you've got a history.
The first one that came to my mind, and I played a lot of this game at a job I had where it was an overnight job, and all I really had to do was watch TV or play on a computer. And so I downloaded a Nintendo emulator and like a handful of Nintendo games, and I would sit and play them all night long. And this Bad News Baseball, and it was made by Tecmo.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I liked the play on it. I would play full seasons, and it just always had a great replayability for me. I never got tired of playing it. I liked the animations. They were a little more cartoony, like along the R.B.I. baseball side, than say like the Roger Clemens or the Bo Jackson, where they were trying to look like real players.
Right.
Or bases loaded even. And the second game, it was tough to choose my favorite, but the Bad News Baseball is my favorite. SNK had a game called Little League Baseball. It was Little League Championship Baseball, and I really enjoyed playing it as well. And one of my favorite parts of that game was it had like the authentic Little League before the game, like almost a coin toss, but it was where the kids who goes who bats first. They had that in the game, which was awesome to me. And so I played that one a lot as well. One that I played that wasn't on the Nintendo, it was on the Super Nintendo. And I owned it. It was one of the games that it was called Super Baseball 2020.
Yeah.
And it was a baseball game set in like a futuristic time, to where like part of the players were people looking, and then some of the players were like robot looking.
Right.
And like the fields were like super huge because all the guys could crush the ball. And I part of the field, I want to say, it was like covered in glass, so there was like no foul territory. Like the ball would bounce off the glass back into fair territory and stuff. So it made for the really weird plays. It was a neat game at the time, you know.
It was innovative. Yeah, I remember playing that over at your place, and Whitehurst had that game as well. And yeah, it was neat. There was also one. you said Baseball 2020. There was another series along those lines called Baseball Simulator 1000.
Simulator 1000. Yeah, that was that was the original Nintendo. Yeah,
like the dudes in the outfielders would shoot up and like catch balls that were really high. Like they had like, you know, rocket packs on and stuff. It was was cool. Yeah. Yeah, good choices, man.
Before I'm done, I want to shout out to Jonathan as well, man. NHL hockey on the Genesis is like the only way to play NHL hockey.
Oh yeah,
it was classic back then. I spent a lot of time playing Genesis hockey.
Oh,
NHL
no doubt.
95, man.
Yeah, 95, dude. I remember I would sit in Spanish class in high school and just think about like after we got NHL 96 and like how it felt a little different. I would just sit there and think about it and like, oh, got to get home and play. Although, and to actually touch upon a point that we, the idea of the memory was a bummer because, Gabe, I don't know if you remember, we would come home and we'd be like, all right, you know, like I'm playing this season, you know, Fedorov's got like 70 goals in 20 games and it's like we're cruising along and you flip it on and the season's just wiped. It's not there.
Yes.
It's nowhere to be found.
The memory capabilities were pretty spotty.
I probably went through, like I returned maybe 4 or 5 NHL 95s to get one that like didn't have a memory that went bad. And I think they all went bad, but I would just keep getting a different one.
The systems didn't really introduce memory cards until like the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, right? Yeah,
well, I mean, like with Zelda,
Genesis,
you could save games with
with
Zelda and Metroid. You'd have to have a code.
Yeah.
They would basically have almost like the quarter-size thin batteries in them. There's a type of battery they were using at the time.
It was an awful cheap battery.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. You know, this one for me, I'm going with something more recent here. And I know we mentioned that haven't really played any of them on the modern console, but really like sort of the last video game I owned was for the computer, and I still have it. It would be, my choice is MVP 05, because I think it we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but it really, they had everything I was looking for in a game. Like, the play was very fluid, which, as we mentioned on a lot of those modern games, like the hitting is next to impossible. You know, I mean, I don't have the time to invest in order to become a skilled hitter on these new games, right?
Oh yeah. Dual
MVP,
analog swings.
Yeah, right. Yeah. MVP 05. I know all you guys had it at one time as well. I know, Levi, you had it on the computer, and Jonathan had it on the Xbox, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I love sort of the dynasty mode where you had your minor league system as well, and you could call guys up.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was one of those things I never knew I was looking for in a game, but it was awesome when I got it.
Yeah.
And and you can sim a lot of games. You know what I mean? Like, you could just play a season, like, I don't know, maybe play like 5 or 6 games, sim the rest, like still make trades and things like that. You know, trades and free agents, all of that. So that gets my choice because I just think it's the last great baseball game.
And you've talked about that quite a bit. And you said that there's a community behind that.
Yeah, very cool. If you guys go to mvpmods.com, I haven't been able to figure out how to get these patches and things. I assume it's probably just swapping around files, but I just don't have the time. And trust me, these people have a lot of time on their hands, because they've kept that game alive with modern rosters. And I'm not just talking like players' names, like they've made faces. You know, like if I'm trying to think of you know, Mike Trout, like they've made him and he looks like Mike Trout, you know, for the most part. Yeah. So it's really cool that they've kept it around, and you know, they've made a lot of the historic players as well. They've made like full teams, like the 84. You can download the 84 Cubs.
Nice.
They might not everybody exactly, but like you can have that as your roster, so you can play a game you can play the '84 Cubs
cool.
versus the 2014 Cardinals. You know what I mean? People have set it up so you can.
That's very cool.
So yeah, go check it out sometime. Just looking at the screenshots and stuff is fun in itself, even if you don't download it or, because like I said, I haven't figured out how to do it, and the community is really geeky and really insular. Like they're not. I don't think like they're into letting newbies in, really. It's, right.
Noob.
Yeah, but just go on there and look at like some of the screenshots because they're really cool. Like they've made new stadiums, like they've made new uniforms, like all that shit.
Well, and it's fascinating too because I've like you said, I think I own that for Xbox. I've got the PS3 and I've got like MLB 09 and MLB 13 or whatever, and like I forget I even have them, and I'll play them a few times, but then I won't I just won't go back to them because I don't have the time to invest in it. But there's something about the older ones that it's just it's quicker to boot up, it's quicker to get a game going, and to just get right into it rather than 11 minutes worth of menus and loading and updating the system and all that.
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. And my choice, I know, kind of runs counter to some of the characteristics of games that you just mentioned, but to me, like it was the one that captured all of those features that I always wanted without becoming impossible to play or too time consuming. Right. Like an average game is still about a half an hour. On that, which is maybe 10 minutes too long, but it's they got it right with that one. And then I think that was the last baseball game that EA made. Yeah. Like they just stopped making baseball games. They're not popular.
And it's interesting, and I don't stay up. I don't keep tabs on all of the video game technologies by any means, but I feel like because I did get the last couple Maddens mainly because there was a promotional offer to get Sunday Ticket with it, but they made adjustments to those so that you could play the games faster. And where they would just automatically call the next play for you, and you didn't have the you could choose to not have the option to go through all the plays. That eventually makes the game last quite a bit longer. And so I assume that maybe that the game makers are recognizing that it's almost too real. You don't want the baseball game, the video game, to actually last 3 hours.
Right.
And there needs to be. There needs to be a line there where you can go back across into the idea of a simulation rather than reality, and because there's a level of fun there that they have to consider. But to have the option for reality for the people who are really hardcore with it, that's great. But just have the option to where it's not going to take me 3 hours.
There was a time where certain games you would see where there would be sometimes in the selections like an arcade mode and then the sim mode.
Right.
But you don't hardly see that anymore. It's all just automatically sim mode.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And they take forever and they're impossible. Like the hitting is just so hard. Like I said, I only play these things like when I go to Target, and I get distracted.
And you can set them up to where it's one button hitting, but it's still not. It doesn't feel as fluid as the 8-bit games did.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I whiff every time, or I'm lucky to get a fly ball to the outfield, and the guy catches it. Yeah, it looks beautiful, the stadium detail is unreal.
I suck, but it looks great.
Yeah. Have you guys played? Have you guys played the R.B.I. 14 yet? The
the new one, yeah.
I read reviews and everybody said the hitting was really challenging. So I didn't bother because it's this is where it's got to be headed. It's an app essentially. Yeah. I mean, I think they might have it for game consoles, but I would assume most people are probably just downloading it on their phone, is my guess. And I've heard the games are relatively quick. They have a lot of ground rule doubles, like in the old game. Like the rosters are kind of limited. Like it'll basically just be the starting lineup, like 2 bench guys and 3 pitchers. like 3 starters and like a reliever.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, that's if you're just playing exhibition games, that's really all you need. So.
And they are like licensed.
It's licensed. Okay. Yeah. Right.
So it's almost like the NBA Jam of baseball.
Right.
Where it's like you have you could pick from like 4 guys or something.
Yeah, exactly. You're sort of your stars. Yeah.
Did you guys ever play Earl Weaver baseball?
Oh, that was a computer game, right?
It was on NES as well.
Oh, was it? Okay. Yeah. No, I haven't. I should say.
No, Gabe, you're right. It was a computer game, but I was reading about it and I thought, okay, Earl Weaver, what was he? How did they decide to pick his name to attach to the game? But
Earl Weaver played a lot of video games,
right? But so apparently they the video game makers actually went on road trips with him and just sat in his hotel room and picked his brain with them, and to get his strategy to put that in the game. And to the point where he was so accommodating that they were apologizing for taking up so much of his time, but he was like, "Oh no, this is great. I mean, usually on road trips, I just sit in my hotel room all the time anyway, by myself, and I love to talk baseball, so this is really great for me." And I thought, well, that's pretty awesome.
That is, yeah. I love that, man. Just kind of travel around the country and pick a manager's brain, hang out after games and just talk. That would be amazing.
Right. Absolutely. But I feel sad for Earl Weaver sitting in a hotel room by himself and not having
right?
Yeah. It's like Eddie Murray at least come down and hang out with him, A lot of people, a lot of baseball video game fans do mention that title as one of the best.
It is well regarded.
I haven't played it, but I know it was well received.
Yeah.
At the time. Yeah.
I had one for a computer called Hardball, and it was not that good of a game.
No.
I remember that. Yeah. I talked about R.B.I. just a minute ago. I wanted to ask you guys 2 titles that we didn't really talk about that were probably, I would say, the most popular series for the NES, whereas R.B.I. Baseball and Bases Loaded. Which one do you guys think is better? If you had to pick one, are you a Bases Loaded guy or an R.B.I. guy?
R.B.I.
Why?
All day long. I could never stand Bases Loaded because of that awful behind the pitcher view. I thought it made the hitting seem weird. I never liked it.
Pitching, but
yeah,
you're right. That's hard
with that view. I hated it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the feel's totally different if it's the pitcher's view. It's really difficult to get the timing down, and you're just kind of taking jabs at it at that point. So I agree with Levi.
Good graphics on Bases Loaded for the NES at the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on R.B.I. you just had those little, it was all little
cartoony.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. It was all little 8-bit John Crux on the. Right.
Yeah, little short and stouts, right?
Yeah. Right. But R.B.I. though, you had the real players, so that's what made it awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Just even if they were just names on you had the '86 Mets and the '86 Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
And,
spread.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was groundbreaking in the sense that really hadn't been something licensed, hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember this. Levi mentioned a Tecmo game, the Bad News Baseball, which was kind of the cartoonish one. But there was also, it was kind of a mediocre title, but I did play it a few times growing up. There was also Tecmo Baseball.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys remember that one.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah. Obviously, Tecmo Bowl, it's no Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah.
But it's that was a game as well. And as I was researching this, I was looking for sort of some of the more marginal titles that I just barely remembered. I just have a vague recollection of these. I'll spit a few of them out. Do you guys remember the Ken Griffey series?
No.
The first one was awesome. The second one sucked.
Okay. Was it for Super Nintendo? I think King Griffey was
Super
for Super Nintendo.
Yeah. It was the Super Nintendo, and he came out with his first one. It was just called King Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And neither game had licenses except for King Griffey Jr., obviously.
Right.
And I remember there was a guy named Can of Corn that could hit a lot of he could hit a lot of high fly balls.
Right.
And one of the neatest things was there was an animation while your guy was at the plate. He would like blow a bubble with his
bubble. Oh yeah.
And it was so popular they like rushed a second game out, and I want to say it was like 96, and it was called King Griffey Jr.'s Winning Run Baseball, and it's awful. They took like a really good game and somehow made it awful.
Huh.
I vaguely remember playing the first one, and you're right. That was probably one of the best Super Nintendo titles. Do you guys remember these were on? I think they were on Genesis. There was a Cal Ripken series too.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys remember that.
Played that one. Never played that one.
Yeah.
Bo Jackson Baseball, which was a good game.
Yep.
For the Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember it on 8-bit.
It was a good. Graphics wise, it was the best for the Nintendo. Because it was like at the very end, it was probably like 89, 90, right when Bo Jackson was on the Royals and everybody was...
90, yeah.
Everybody was worshiping Bo Jackson, so it was right before, the video game systems really transitioned to Genesis and Super Nintendo. So it was one of the, the last major baseball titles for NES. One more then, do you guys remember Mo Vaughn Baseball?
Oh, God, no, I should, but I don't.
Wasn't there a Mo Vaughn Baseball? I'm pretty
there?
sure there was. And maybe
I don't know.
I see this in a dream.
You may have dreamt this. Admittedly,
I did.
it's not coming up on my Wikipedia page right now.
Okay, all right, okay, maybe not. All right, sorry guys.
They shelved it and went with Gary Gaetti Baseball instead.
Right. Yeah, like. So yeah, those are some of the more marginal titles. Maybe I was just thinking of something. I'm sorry. I for some reason I thought there was a Mo Vaughn game.
I wish there was.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
and it was before he got big, so it was Maurice Vaughn. Maurice Vaughn Baseball.
Not that Mo Vaughn was a bad player. He was a good player, but it would have been kind of like when Buster Douglas got his own Genesis game.
Yeah. You knock off the champ, you're gonna get a game,
right?
Man.
Right. I mean, Mo Vaughn was better. Like comparing the baseball and boxing, Mo Vaughn was like a better baseball player than Buster Douglas was a boxer. Like Mo Vaughn was good, but still, Mo Vaughn wouldn't have been like a Hall of Famer to.
Yeah.
Not as iconic as any of those players I just mentioned.
Yeah. I always like I said, his early cards had his first name as Maurice always.
Oh yeah,
Maurice
absolutely.
Maurice Vaughn, baby.
Yep.
And for me, I'm sorry for the R.B.I. bases loaded debate. I go with R.B.I. as well. The hitting was just too hard on bases loaded. I liked bases loaded music better. I did like the soundtrack better.
Yeah,
Bases Loaded was made by Jalico. Who I looked it up. They're still a company, but they've moved to real estate. They're yes. They don't do any video games anymore, but they've got a bunch of Japanese real estate.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And I think I always called him Jalico when I was a kid.
Right.
It is funny how dramatic the music is in some of those games.
Oh, it's intense.
Yeah. And I thought, that's a good move.
8-bit MIDI. Yeah.
I would assume there's got to be a DJ out there that just samples video game music.
I'm sure.
There has to be somebody out there that's like, DJ 8-bit, and he just plays shit like that,
Yeah. Well, I mean, they made like lush sounding songs out of like such a limited amount of sounds and notes. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, thanks, guys. I don't want to be up all night. So, right. Listening to those, get to bed at 2:00 in the morning now. All right. It's gonna be a rough.
The headphones on. Download a playlist and put the headphones on and lie down.
Right. Well, moving on to talking about music videos now. We talked about baseball video games, sort of fading. Music videos have certainly done that as well. I mean, I guess people still make them. I assume they just go straight to YouTube. But I wanted to talk about some videos that had an impact on, or that that are memorable to you, that are some of your favorite music videos. Because I spent a lot of time in front of the television growing up. I was on a pretty healthy diet of it. So these were important to me, all these videos. So, hell, I saw them spent every day of my life for a little while with some of these videos because they'd show them a lot. So, Jonathan, what about, starting with you, what videos made an everlasting impression on you?
Well, in short, not many. And my reason is kind of a segue from our previous discussion, in that I feel like if you compare the two, like video games and music videos, video games served a much greater purpose than I think music videos did. At least with video games, like, it would get kids, it would like teach them, some hand-eye coordination and some. And they would get to know other players and things like that, and some strategy behind it all. But and the idea that kind of augments a sport, much like a music video augments a band or a song or just all pop music in general. And I felt like that music videos, 99% of them are just kind of garbage. And they're just kind of self-serving, and maybe there is an artistic vision there that the musician or band is fulfilling, and there's some good ones out there, whether it's the early Dire Straits stuff, or the extent to which the Beastie Boys did some of their stuff. OK Go, Arcade Fire, they've done really creative things with their music videos. But a lot of them, and this kind of harkens back to why Pearl Jam stopped making music videos. A lot of them just kind of got in the way for me. And they kind of clouded my vision of the music. As a result, Pearl Jam's Jeremy is like, I can't ever hear it. I only see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When I hear it, it doesn't sound like a song to me. And granted, it's mainly because it's like 1.5 chords, but that's another story. And that's kind of why they stopped making videos. And I understand that now, because it definitely changes things when you see a video and hear a song at the same time for the first time. It changes how you digest that song from there on out. Right. That being said, now, as a result, whenever I hear Metallica's One, it puts me in a very uncomfortable position. Metallica's One was so unsettling to me as a 10-year-old. That it gave me nightmares. I
think everybody has one of those videos.
Johnny got his gun, man. It's like the guy that was just basically a torso and a head. Like that's. Yeah, it's disturbing, man.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. It's and you would think about it at like random times, and I think it's really well executed. And it's well edited. They had a vision for that, and I get it. Like it's like 7 minutes long.
It was their first video too.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that.
4th album, but first video.
Wow.
Yeah. They were against it. That was when they started to get huge. I mean, obviously it exploded after the Black Album, but And Justice for All was certainly their breakthrough to a mainstream audience.
Yeah, and I think it was because my brother was watching it, and I would just like peeking around the corner watching it, just terrified out of my mind.
Right.
But so and so that's an example. I think that something that has a lasting impact. But I think in some ways for the better. Granted, it has, every time I hear that song, whether or not it's with the video, I envision the video, which has some advantages and disadvantages. Because as a result now I can't ever kind of have my own vision for that song. Nine Inch Nails, Closer and Hurt. I mean, I think really neat stuff. Disturbing, yes, but memorable, and I think complemented the music well. And those are examples that from bands that aren't necessarily like my favorite bands. I really like the bands, but they aren't my favorite bands. But they're probably, I think, my favorite bands in terms of videos in some ways. Pearl Jam's videos that they did for 10 are, it's kind of forgettable stuff. Those where they, you have like some live stuff intercut with some other, some B-roll, and it's like, okay, great. That's not really serving any purpose other than being able to play this song on TV. And so I kind of, in that sense, understand why MTV got out of the business of videos, because, by the time, I stopped watching videos around 93 or so, 94, they had, in many ways, run their course. And but like I said, there's always exceptions to the rule. Beastie Boys, OK Go, Arcade Fire, all did really creative stuff with videos. But generally speaking, I think they're mostly unnecessary.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I fully agree with you, Jonathan. And I think a lot of the times they could sometimes, like you mentioned, get in the way of they sometimes didn't portray the message you could tell that the artist wanted to portray. It was just like a record company pushing to make money, because that's really what music videos were created for, was to make money. And if I had to pick one that was at the later stages of the game, like you said, 94, 95, 6, it would be Guns N' Roses' Estranged. It's the most epic, biggest bloated music video ever made.
It's got
like CGI
dolphins in it, all right?
Yeah, come on. That's the apex of music video making, in my mind. In my mind, that's like heist. It only goes down from there.
Got Axel in the shower with all of his clothes on, like.
Yeah.
Right.
But my actual choice for music videos that shaped me and like helped me understand music better. When I was young, we got a channel, and I watched some MTV, but I also watched this channel a lot because it was what my parents watched, and it was called TNN, and it was called the Nashville Network.
Oh yeah.
And it had basically like 3 or 4 shows, it seemed like at the time.
Barbara Mandrell's.
Yeah, it was like the Grand Ole Opry. It was the Grand Ole Opry, like always Barbara Mandrell with her sisters. And I'll say it, man, that bitch can pick a band show, and it would be like Ralph Emery would have this show called Nashville Now, and it was like he was the Johnny Carson of country music. He was like, hey, like, you could tell they were probably all doing lines and toots backstage and stuff. And so during one of the music video blocks, I remember they would play these 3 videos a lot. And the first one was new at the time, a new artist. They were promoting him some, and that's Guitar Town by Steve Earle. And they had come out with a video, and it's just a collage of shots of him live. And it along with these other 2 videos helped me realize that like country music was changing at that time, and it was getting more of like a rock edge to it, along with the traditional older style that had kind of got skipped over and glossed over in the 80s, like the late 70s, early part of the 80s. This was around 1985 was around when all these came out, I think, 85 to 87. And so one was All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight with Hank Williams Jr. And I'm sure I was probably not supposed to see the video at the time, but it's like,
dude, Cheech and Chong are in
dancing
it.
Around.
Cheech and Chong are in the video.
I'm going to run it down right fucking now. George Jones, George Thorogood, the Oak Ridge Boys, Cheech and Chong, Chris Christopherson, Waylon and Willie, Mel Tillis, Paul Williams. You guys know who Paul Williams is? He plays the little short guy sidekick in Smokey and the little blue suit, like the little matching blue suits. weird story behind him. Paul Williams, he's a huge songwriter. He wrote We've Only Just Begun and some of the Carpenters' biggest hits. And he also wrote some of the Daft Punk songs on the last Daft Punk record. So yeah, weird Paul Williams connection here. So he's in the video, and one of my favorites is, so Jim Varney is in the video. And it's pre-Ernest days. So I don't know if like Jim Varney was just like a party guy in the country music scene or what. But it's a great video, and it also,
no
like
party
I said,
without Ernest, man.
Yeah,
Come on.
And so it was showing me that rock music was getting more and more brought into country music at that time.
That's a good point.
And the last one was Guitars and Cadillacs, which was a video by Dwight Yoakam, and it just had killer guitar riffs, and I didn't know what they were at the time, but I was like, man, I really like that. I didn't know necessarily what guitar solos were or anything about it, but I just really enjoyed the guitar work in it, and it was his producer who toured with him for years. His name was Pete Anderson, and he can play guitar like a mother. So those are the 3 videos. Like I said, they would come on the Nashville network. Around the same time, they would have these blocks of videos, and they would have like a rock and country block, and it would be those 3 videos.
Nice.
Cool.
Levi, come on. You were just having fantasies about combing Travis Tritt's hair. All right. Come on now. The mullet.
I'm a member of the country club, man. I'm a member of a country club.
That's right. Here's a quarter, bud. Call someone who cares. All right. But anyway, I don't see how we've made it this far into the show without mentioning, and I know earlier we said we're not really the type of dudes that throw around like that's the best ever, like we all recognize that there's a lot of subjectivity in all this, but when it comes to videos, there is not a better video than Hot for Teacher. I'm sorry. There isn't. There isn't. There is not a better video, okay?
I thought
there are some other. Sabotage is an amazing video, okay? But it's not Hot for Teacher. Like, Hot for Teacher, like, they got it right. Like, in the story.
Yeah, I want to find where the little mini Michael Anthony is and, like, hang out with that kid.
I know. Dude, I wanted to be one of those kids so fucking bad, dude. I mean, like, Diamond Dave picks them up after school, they look those kids look so cool, dude. I just wanted to be them so badly when I saw that video. And obviously the video is just pure sleaze, as all good Van Halen songs are. Waldo, you got the character of Waldo in the video, the nervous nerdy kid. You got Eddie playing guitar solos on top of the cafeteria tables. It was just man, because you know what? All that says was school sucks. Van Halen is awesome, and that's all you fucking need to know, dude. That's it. Yes. So yeah, like there's very few things, like I say, are absolutes. I'm like Hot for Teacher, best video of all time. I'll say that. I'll say it. So that one stands out to me. A couple others. I mentioned Sabotage. I don't really remember liking any videos after Sabotage, though. Sabotage would have been 94. Ill Communications came out in 94, right? And to me, that was the beginning of the end. Yeah. It's like,
I enjoyed the Blackberry video. That was what, like
96 for the Crows?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool video.
It's surreal. It's some of like
yeah, they're in a lot of Alice in Wonderland stuff. I can't really think of a lot of memorable videos after 94, after Sabotage. And that's kind of when also I kind of tuned out MTV.
Right, yeah. So that's part of it.
Like, MTV wasn't cool anymore, it was, I just viewed it as this stupid promotional thing,
right.
And I started getting into older bands more then,
Right.
So yeah, so part of it was timing, but Sabotage was like, that's kind of the bookend for videos for me,
Yeah, I mean, videos with just kind of a fun narrative.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. I do remember the first my love affair with Kiss kind of started. I mean, it got more intense as it went on, but it started with a music video. I remember I came home from Sunday in '85, and my old man's like, "We got cable." So we had all these new channels. We had Nickelodeon, we had USA, right? And we had MTV. Whoa, all right. So I sit down. I would have only been like six. And Tears Are Falling, a brand new video at the time from Kiss from 1985 came out. And it's not a good video, trust me. It's a bad era for Kiss. But, that was the first video I remember seeing was Tears Are Falling by Kiss. And also, one other thing, I thought Duran Duran made really good videos.
Mm-hmm.
They all had a cinematic quality to them,
absolutely,
good cinematography, like the Hungry. If you guys watch the Hungry Like the Wolf video,
it's like Casablanca,
it's kind of a film, And speaking of films, and I'll try to stop myself after this. Really, one of the more epic videos of all time is Smuggler's Blues as well by Glenn Frey. Yeah, I mean it's basic. It's a movie.
It's a mini movie.
It's a mini movie. Yes, with a great twist at the end as well. Yeah, dude. I remember when I saw that twist at the end, my cousin Chad and I were watching it, and it turns out when the cop is the guy that's been tracking him the whole time, and he's like, he's got the gun. My mind was just blown. I was like, holy shit. so yeah, Smuggler's Blues was so good. So yeah, but Hot for Teacher takes the cake for me. It's the best ever. Just end of story.
I would say the first video I can recall watching, and obviously is because it was such an event at the time, was obviously Thriller.
Oh,
I remember my sister pulling me in and being like, "Oh, watch this," and the thing at the end where he turns and he's got the yellow eyes that weirded
Vincent Price's laugh
for years. That weirded me out for years. And also, I would say the freakiest video I thought at the time, Jonathan had his when he was 10. Mine was probably the "Don't Come Around Here No More" video.
Oh yeah.
I was just people aren't supposed to be eaten like cake. They're not. Right. Just
It shows her as a pig too. You're like, no.
It was my first taste of psychedelic, and I did not like it.
Right. Yeah, I would have loved to have been on set that day. Petty and Epstein were just ripped out of their gourds during that one. So yeah, great video, man. Petty always did good work with videos.
Yeah. A lot of Johnny Depp.
Wide Open with Johnny Depp. Running Down a Dream, the animated one, is
right.
Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And just to kind of touch on my my distaste for most videos again, I understand the artist's intent, and there are a lot of good intentions. But in the same vein that I don't have to buy Jeff Tweedy's poetry books, I also don't need to. I don't necessarily need to watch my favorite artist videos, because it can have a lasting impact that isn't always for the best, but it's fun in its own right and of its own. In a vacuum, it's great, but I prefer just the audio only interpretation, I guess, is what I was getting at. But of course, an artist has the right to do whatever they want with their music. So.
Yeah. It was kind of awkward, too, to watch some of those older artists in the 80s and 90s sort of struggle through making them. You know what I mean? It was a new medium.
Yeah.
So, like Clapton and Dylan and all these people, it was just kind of what is this about? Because you're most likely lip singing. You're not really probably performing the song. Yeah. You're on some soundstage or something, So, it was kind of awkward for a lot of those artists to transition to that era.
In my mind, it was every Eric Clapton video. There was a scene where he's in a duster playing a guitar, a cowboy duster.
Right.
He's always in a cowboy duster, just playing the guitar somewhere. Right. That's every '80s Clapton video. There's a clip of that in the video.
I've wondered, if there hasn't been an artist who's considered going back and remaking videos for their older music. even going back as far as, say, Elvis. Is there, and maybe not, it's not the artist who does it, but it's somebody else. It's just a third party, unaffiliated third party who just makes a well executed video for an older song.
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of creative offerings out there on YouTube.
Yeah,
I would imagine of people that have made some cool ones.
Yeah.
So
Bob Seger has done it. When Bob Seger got like the Chevy deal in the early '90s with the Like a Rock, he came out. He made I believe a Night Moves video, and then he made, I want to say, maybe a Hollywood Nights video, and a Like a Rock. I
would have been like 15 years later.
Yeah. And so he was one of the only people I've ever known that's done that.
That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah. Good stuff. A part of me kind of misses them a little bit. They were things that they really had they made a splash. You know what I mean? And you don't really get that as much anymore. So
yeah,
it might just be the state of the music industry. But
one of my favorite actual, I guess it would be a music video that wasn't in a music video, was another shout out to Van Halen, but Better Off Dead with John Cusack, where they have a dancing claymation cheeseburger singing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think that's why Van Halen wrote the song, so he could have a claymation cheeseburger singing it, right?
Yeah, no, they were the night before Van Halen was definitely made for the music video era, certainly, and even the one like even Jump, which is kind of just them performing, is still kind of an awesome video, just because they knew how to have, they felt like it looked like they were having fun,
and you can play a really fun drinking game to that. You drink every time he does a 360 roundhouse.
Yeah,
you could get wasted.
Dave could have competed in the 1984 Olympics, man. He really could have, dude. Probably I don't know if you guys know, probably like the rock star that partied the most, but was probably in the best shape physically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't think of another person that was like partied that hard, but also like still like like do taekwondo and stuff.
And I'll admit, I saw the tour where it was the Best of Both Worlds tour, where it was him and Sammy Hagar together, and he did the whole bit where in the middle of the show he like came out in like a full karate outfit, and he had like samurai swords, and he's all doing. I was like, you still got it, Dave. You still got it.
Oh, during Jump to the he did the baton twirls and everything as well. God, what a man! I mean, seriously.
Think of all the band leaders he's helped train.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, anyway. Well, good stuff, guys. Music videos will always, the good ones at least, will always have a place in my heart. So, absolutely. Well, until we chat again.
Yeah, you want to give a shout out that we're going to be moving the Show Your Cards to its own.
Right. We are. Yeah, we are. We usually, typically at the end of these shows, we showcase our baseball cards from our collections. We're going to keep doing that. It's a lot of fun, but we're gonna put them into their own segment that we're going to be able to sort of give our listeners some content in between full episodes. So it'll be cool. So look for that coming soon.
Yeah, and then we're going to want to get our listeners / watchers involved too in the Show Your Cards, and so they'll be able to do that on our Facebook and on our Twitter. So details forthcoming.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we also have some sets of Diamond Kings we will be giving away as well.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful cards. Going to be giving those away. So good stuff coming, guys.
Yep.
Episode 10, by the way, tonight. Is it?
Yeah.
Well done.
We made it.
Yep.
Till next time.
All right, boys. Until next time, have a good week, and I will see you with your cards.
All right.
So,
rock and
talk
roll.
To you soon, guys.
Peace.